Coming up on Network Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo's leader, Felix Tshisekedi, proposes unity government amid ongoing violence with the rebels. Sudan's army ends a 2-year siege of key southern state capital of El Obeid. Plus, Nigeria commits to championing Africa's economic growth, inclusivity and resilience on the global stage at the just concluded G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend. The violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo continues as South Africa readies itself for the G20 summit as first African host. Plus, the Kasai Island residents in Egypt organized a boat procession to celebrate Nile Day.
On Saturday, residents of Bukavu City flocked to a meeting with M23 troops a week after the group announced it had taken control of the city. Thousands of citizens ran to the streets, cheering, singing and holding placards on their way to the meeting. M23 spokesperson Lawrence Kayunka was seen greeting the locals. According to them, rapid changes are about to take place and peace will return to the city. M23 fighters entered Bukavu last Friday after advancing south from Goma, a very key city in North Kivu province. Seized earlier this year, the group declared a unilateral ceasefire, which the DRC dismissed as false communication. In South Africa, the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Ronald Lamola, underscored the G20's agreement to support peace efforts for global conflicts during an address in Johannesburg.
The meeting stressed on the need for urgent action to accelerate efforts and reaffirm the G20's strong commitment to the SDGs in line with the theme, solidarity, equality and sustainability. Stressed that the ongoing conflicts across the globe are detrimental to economic development and the attainment of SDGs. The impact of wars on education and health was highlighted as a major concern by some participants. To this end, sustainable investments in conflict prevention and peace building was underscored. Concerning the ongoing conflict and wars in Africa, the Middle East and Europe, the meeting reiterated that all states must act in a manner consistent with the purpose and principles of the UN Charter. Affirmed that all parties in conflicts must comply with their obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Guided by these principles, there was agreement to support all efforts towards a just peace in Ukraine, Palestine, Sudan, the DRC, and other major conflicts across the globe.
The G20 Foreign Ministers meeting was held in Johannesburg on February 20th to 21st. It makes the first event under the South African presidency of the organization, with the host nation pledging to put the African continent and the global south ahead of a traditional Western-dominated agenda. And in Egypt, residents of Kasai Island, located in the metropolitan area of Cairo, organized a boat parade to celebrate Nile Day, an event organized by ancient pharaonic tradition during the flood season. The goal of the event was to raise awareness about the importance of maintaining the cleanliness of the Nile and reducing pollution, which threatens communities that rely on it as a vital source of water. Fishermen during the event sailed along the river in their decorated boats, carrying a wooden model of the Bride of the Nile. Inspired by ancient Egyptian heritage, the celebration also featured festive music performances.
President Felix Tshisekedi of Congo has announced plans for a unity government amid escalating violence in his country. In his first remarks, since Rwandan-backed rebels took control of significant cities in the eastern region, President Tshisekedi addressed the Sacred Union of the Nation ruling coalition, urging members to focus on unity rather than internal disputes. The president of Congo has declared his intention to establish a unity government as violence intensifies in the eastern part of the country and criticism grows regarding his response to the situation. Admitting that he may have lost the battle, he says he has not lost the war, calling on everyone, including the opposition, to form a national unity government. However, he has not yet provided the specifics on the structure or timeline. In the meantime, former president of the DRC is accusing the current president of poor governance, which he says has significantly contributed to the escalating conflict in the eastern region of DRC. Former leader Joseph Kabila says he believes that Felix Tshisekedi's aim to become the absolute ruler of the country by silencing the opposition and resorting to intimidation, arbitrary arrests and extrajudicial executions. In an opinion piece published in South Africa's Sunday Times, Mr. Kabila argued that the unrest cannot be attributed solely to the advances of the Rwandan-supported M23 armed group or the tensions between Kinshasa and Kigali. Mr. Kabila notes that since President Tshisekedi assumed office in 2019, following his election victory, the situation in the DRC has worsened to a point where it is close to imploding. M23 fighters have rapidly gained control over large areas of the resource-rich eastern DRC in recent weeks, raising concerns that the conflict may extend beyond the country's borders. Meanwhile, the UN Children's Agency UNICEF is highlighting the impact of destroyed health centers and mass displacements of children in North Kivu amid M23 rebel clashes. UNICEF communications specialist James John said during an interview in Kinshasa that the health situation is a real concern for the agency, especially because after a conflict period like this, there can be secondary issues with infections. Furthermore, Mr. John asserts that about 500,000 children are among the 7 million total people displaced due to the conflict in the region.
So what we've got at the moment with the conflict over the past few weeks is about 1 million people who've been displaced by sort of rough estimates because of the conflict. And, you know, that will be about 500,000 children who've been forced to move just over the past few weeks. Already displacement is really high in the east of DRC. We're talking about 7 million total people. So that's a lot of impact on children. And for those sorts of children, we're talking about them being moved away from areas where they're in school, where they had shelter, where they had access maybe to clean water. And sadly, for many families, they've been displaced a huge number of times already. So, you know, this conflict is not new, but for children, it continues to be bad news. At UNICEF, we've received lots of reports from our partners about incidents involving children. We've seen children in hospital, we've seen injuries from the conflict. At the same time, we are receiving reports of cases of sexual violence and, of course, the general trauma. You know, schools have been damaged, basic infrastructure, not to mention sort of just being displaced around the country. So it's very difficult. At UNICEF, we particularly work with partners to provide sort of trauma counselling to children. I was just today with one of our psychologists who provides that counselling directly, and she told me a number of very difficult stories about the stories that she's hearing from children. So it's very difficult. The trauma is there. Some of it is speaking through that there's issues because they are there. At the same time, obviously, there are physical needs as well to deal with. But this is quite traumatic for children, and the sort of thing that can stay with children for a long time into adulthood.
Away from the DRC, the Sudanese army says it has broken a near 2-year siege imposed by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, on the key southern state capital of El Obeid. Now, the big breakthrough came hours after the RSF signed a political charter in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, to establish a breakaway government in areas under its control. The RSF and the army have been in a vicious battle for power since April 2023, with tens of thousands of people killed and millions forced from their homes. The war has split the country, with the army controlling the north and the east, while the RSF holds most of the Darfur region in the west and parts of the south. Well, joining us now for more on the impact of the conflict on women and children is Dr. Ero Ibafidon, a women's rights advocate and founder CEO Water Light Save Initiative. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you, Lion, for having me.
Well, recently, I know you addressed the informal consultation on the revitalization of the work of the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN headquarters in New York, where you are. Well, tell us a bit more about this that bordered on, the rights of women, especially women in conflict-ridden regions.
Thank you very much again. It was an honor to contribute our own quotas during the discussion at the CSW revitalization process at the United Nations. The reason for that consultation was to ensure that the CSW focuses more and enhance more initiative that will be beneficiary to women and children in the world. But as Water Light Save Initiative, our focus was basically to intercede and advocate for women in underserved communities, because we believe that these women are faced with challenges that are not on the new space, like the social media, where people can actually gain access to what is happening. Some of these women in underserved communities does not have access to those mediums. So we believe that our voice will help them in their various space, and see how the CSW can also include them more in their policies, that it will be very well beneficial for them. And one of the key points we noted at that revitalization meeting was actually having some of these women being represented on a global space, whereby somebody that could intercede for these women from on a global stage, being able to pour out the basic challenges and all what's happening them in those unreached communities back to them at the United Nations. And I think after the meeting, we had a one-on-one with the executive director of the UN Women, and she noted that most of those policies and those needs to be taken into consideration ASAP.
Now, in advocating for women, and we're talking about African women, in underserved communities, what can the continent do, or, individually, or even as a nation do in helping these women, especially in tackling the humanitarian crisis that we've seen from conflicts in Sudan and the DRC, for example?
Our intervention, we think the government should prioritize women safety and well-being as they are to do, mostly in those rural and unserved communities where they have limited access to basic amenities like potable water, medical, and like Water Light Save Initiative. Now we are actually taking it up on providing more humanitarian aids to those conflict zones by providing more empowerment initiative in these conflict inflicted areas. And we also call on the government also and the world to actually prioritize women's safety first. And the United Nations, like I said, they are doing a great job to make sure that the voice of these women and children are heard, and their well-being and safety is paramount. And that is why the slogan of leaving no one behind is a driving force now globally, making sure that those women in underserved communities have a voice and their needs are being met, because they do not have anybody to call on. They needed organizations like ours to intercede and be the voice for them here. That is why we are here, to make sure that their needs are being met and being catered for.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Dr. Ero Imafidon, women's rights advocate and founder, Waterlight Save Initiative. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Layo, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for staying with us. Nigeria is committed to championing Africa's economic growth, inclusivity and resilience on the global stage. This was highlighted by Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga, in an exclusive interview with Channels Television. Mr. Tuga stated that Nigeria is pushing for fairer trade policies, stronger climate action, and greater representation for the global south to help shape a more equitable world order. He was speaking to our South Africa correspondent Innocent Samosa on the sidelines of the just concluded G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg.
We're contributing our own quota, but this is why also we're pushing very hard for a reform of the global financial architecture, as well as the political governing bodies such as the United Nations Security Council. We feel that it's time for Africa to belong in there. A country like Nigeria has a population of 220 million. It's going to be the third largest country in the world by 2050. Takes, for instance, South Africa, population 63 million. So these are sizable numbers and yet no representation. So look at the United Nations. They say as much as 67, I think, % of the decisions taken in the UN Security Council have to do with Africa, and yet Africa is not represented. So we need to reform these sort of organs so that there's better representation. And in the same United Nations, Nigeria is championing the UN global framework on taxation so that African countries get more. In fact, countries in general, governments get more out of taxation because you have multinationals that are getting away with paying next to nothing because they move funds around within the same multinational corporations because they have different companies.
Ambassador Tuga also stated that the Nigerian government will continue to engage with South African authorities on challenges faced by Nigerians in South Africa, including work permits and visa acquisition.
Absolutely. We've been engaging with the South African authorities and stressing the need to address this at all levels. Even during this visit, this was discussed with Minister Lamola. And first and foremost, both South Africa and Nigeria agree that we need to do more trade, more investment. South Africa already has some major successes in the Nigerian economy. If you look at what the turnover of DSTV, turnover of MTN, turnover of Standard Chartered, turnover of ShopRite. This is huge. There's no equivalent here, and we want to see that. And again, I think it was the father of modern economics, or even capitalism, Adam Smith, that stressed that trade and capitalism doesn't just work with movement of. It's not just about moving goods and services. It also fundamentally requires movement of people. So Nigerians have to be able to come here to trade.
Well, the national president of the Association of Waste Managers of Nigeria, Mr. Olugbenga Adebola, has charged waste managers to work as a group and redefine Nigeria's waste management sector. Mr. Adebola made this comment at the 2025 International Waste Management Conference, where policymakers, waste management professionals emphasized the importance of implementing circular economy principles to drive impactful change in Nigeria's waste management system. Awam also presented an award to Channels Television and other private bodies who has contributed their quota to sustainable waste management.
Members of Association of Waste Managers of Nigeria converge on Lagos Continental Hotel for the group's 2025 International Waste Management Conference with the theme Redefining Integrated Waste Management in Nigeria through Circular Economy. The president of the association and other speakers advocate the adoption of circular economy principles that will help reduce the environmental impact of waste and also create job opportunities for the people.
This conference is not just about discussion, it is about solution. As we engage in thought-provoking conversations, showcase cutting-edge innovations, and celebrate sustainability champions, let us all make a commitment to work together. We can't continue to work in silos and take decisive action that will redefine Nigerian waste management sector. And of course, talking about circular economy, it is not limited or applicable to waste management alone.
We must confront the pressing issue of waste management and environmental degradation. Lagos State, with its vibrant economy and rapidly growing population, is at a crossroads. We can continue down the path of linear consumption and waste, or we can pioneer a new approach, one that prioritizes the well-being of our citizens, our environment, and our economy. This approach is the circular economy. A circular economy is not just a buzzword, it's a paradigm shift.
Representatives from Lagos, Ogun, Osun, and foreign partners also encourage the people to embrace circular economy in order to create a better future for the young ones.
Circular economy is the next way to go, all right, and is the next opportunity that will unlock the potentials in waste management through regenerative economy. We have to be regenerative and develop new goals, okay, or national goals. We need to develop new targets to make sure that the nationally determined contributions of the 20% unconditional and the 47% conditional, we meet those targets promptly. And this is the way to go.
In Osun State, we have embraced an integrated approach to waste management, prioritizing innovation, public-private partnerships, and community engagement to transition from a linear take, make, dispose model to a more sustainable circular economy framework. Our goal is to turn waste into wealth, creating opportunities in recycling.
The managing director of Lagos State Waste Management Authority urged the people to embrace change and opportunities in waste management.
We can't go far without those of you in this room. And that's why I'm going to take this opportunity to plead with you to embrace this change. I want every waste manager here present to embrace the policies of this administration with an open mind.
On day 2, AWAM celebrates its award night, recognizing distinguished personalities, diplomats who have supported the growth on AWAM.
Channels, television.
The print and broadcast media was also not left out in its recognition of excellence and contribution on waste and environmental sustainability. And Channels Television's reporter Titilayo Aberowo also received the Best Environmental Reportage Award. The Association of Waste Managers of Nigeria welcomed the support of the public and private sector to keep Lagos and the country at large clean by practicing circular economy.
And finally on the program, Libya's second largest city of Benghazi has opened its newly reconstructed international stadium with a high-profile ceremony featuring global football legends. The event was attended also by Eastern Libya's strongman Khalifa Haftar. The oil-rich country remains divided between the internationally recognized Tripoli-based government in the west, led by Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Deiba, and a Haftar-backed rival administration in the east. The stadium is set to host as many as 42,000 spectators, a significant increase from its past 28,000 seat capacity. For many football-loving Libyans, it's also signaled a step towards normalcy in the city that has endured years of conflict. And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.